Hello again, and welcome to the 271st weekly presentation of Forum for a Better Understanding. It's been my privilege for the past 5 years to have interviewed more than 200 different religious leaders from around the Valley. They've come from Christian and non-Christian churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples. They've introduced us to a world of religion, sometimes similar to the Roman Catholic way, sometimes completely different. They've been in discussion, sometimes around a difficult topic, or they've just presented their own processes in their own churches around a single issue that they're dealing with. Today we have a very, very interesting pair of guests that you may have met about 6 weeks ago in the Bee. A good friend of ours, Ron Orozco, who does cover the world of interfaith religion, created a very interesting article called Breaking the Stained Glass Ceiling. And I thought it was not only a great title, but also a wonderful concept for us to look at today on the forum. The church that we are looking at today is the United States Episcopal Church, which does allow and has since 1979 women priests. So for 30 years, the United States Episcopal Church has been ordaining women to leadership. But we're going to meet two who were rather recently ordained and are now serving in the Valley in different capacities, in different congregations. And I really think it's going to be great for us to find out about their vocations, about the type of ministry they've been called to, and about the process that they've taken to get to this point in their life. So my first guest to my left is the Reverend Michele Racusin, who happens to be the priest in charge at the Church of the Holy Family in Fresno, the Episcopal Church in Fresno. Now, we've had other pastors from that church already on this program, and you may remember Keith, and you may remember Jim Stickney, who was recently on, but right now, Michele is the priest in charge at Holy Family, and it's nice to have you here, Michele.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, to her side is someone that was also featured in this article, the Reverend Suzy Ward, who happens to be the priest in charge at the congregation called St. Paul's Episcopal Church, Visalia. And we're so glad that these two women priests are going to share with us part of their life and part of their journey, and to kind of enrich us who would be wanting to know more about the Episcopal Church and what it is going through at this point in its life. So my first question to both of you would be to tell us a little bit about yourselves, your family life, and what it is that would be interesting apart from your own vocation to priesthood. Michele and Suzy.
Well, I have a husband of almost 25 years and 4 sons, and they've been very much a part of this journey with me. My youngest son was 3 years old when I entered seminary, and 6 when I graduated. So he, by the time I graduated, only knew me as a student and a working mom. And I recently left my profession as a certified public accountant, working for the largest accounting firm in the world, to go into ministry full-time.
Which accounting firm is that?
Deloitte.
Oh my, so your background is totally business.
Totally business, yeah. CPA, MBA.
And what was it even that then inclined you to see, apart from that other alternative life, to even look at ministry? How did that even come about?
Well, I really believe that this type of ministry is a calling, and I felt very called to this ministry at age 10. And of course, they didn't ordain women at that time, and so I waited, and when the time was right, I pursued it.
And you've been Episcopal your life?
My whole life.
Suzy, tell us a little bit then about your family life, and maybe how it was that the first idea of going to follow a vocation, how it started.
Well, I've been married almost 31 years. I have 2 grown children. I have a daughter who's an attorney who actually works for the chancellor of our diocese, and I have a son who's on active duty in the military. He is part of the 1106 AVCRAD, which is stationed here in Fresno, but currently is on active duty in Balad, Iraq, repairs helicopters.
Wow.
So they have also been a big part of what I've been doing. I can't say that they've only known me as
Yeah.
as a student. We did have some time in there but I've always been active in the church ever since they were quite young. And as far as my actual calling to the ministry, I too have felt like I've been called for quite some time and have just been trying to find a way to follow up that call. I actually visited a convent in Santa Barbara before I was married, thinking potentially that might be.
Which kind of a convent?
It was an Episcopal convent. There are Episcopal orders in the United States, both male and female. So that is an option in the Episcopal Church as well.
Have you also been Episcopal from cradle, or what?
Yes, I was baptized when I was quite young.
Where have you both lived? Let's say California all the time, or maybe across the country, what?
I've basically lived in California my whole life.
And Suzy?
I was born in Idaho, in fact was baptized in the little Episcopal Church in Idaho, but we moved to California when I was quite young.
Having gotten that little background, which shows how family is such an important part of this, would you want to open up the question of your own faith? To those who are watching who might not know Episcopal faith, just what it is that they could understand, either connected to what would be known. I'm finding it similar to Roman Catholic faith. There's a lot of Episcopal that is so similar to mine. Mm-hmm. Could you clarify what it means to be an Episcopalian for our viewers?
Well, you're right in that it's very similar to the Roman Catholic denomination. We follow the liturgy that's very similar to yours. The ministers wear vestments. We have acolytes. We just don't have a pope. We have a collection of bishops who make the decisions that the pope would make on behalf of the Roman Catholic Church. So very similar.
Your Episcopal faith, how would you describe it, Suzy? What is it when you think of yourself as an Episcopalian? What is it that what does that most mean to you?
Well, I think similar to what Michele said, very much a strong emphasis on the liturgy and the sacraments in our lives. I also think in the Episcopal Church a real focus on social ministry, social action. It's a faith that allows us to really think. We don't always have to be in agreement about issues. One of the aspects of the Episcopal Church is that it can contain within it a diverse opinion on issues, and yet we can come together at the table in the sacraments and share that common meal, even though we may disagree on how do we answer a particular theological question, or how do we pursue ministry in the church. We have a common table, and we can come to that table.
Now this is, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I may be falling down after I say it. I kind of think of the Episcopal Church as the Anglican Church as it is lived in the United States. Sort of like it's the Anglican Church of England, but these are Americans, so they're Episcopalian.
That's correct.
That may have worked a while back. Right now, how would you help us understand what is maybe going on within the Episcopal Church as in some way differentiating or clarifying or distinguishing itself from maybe what is the Church of England, which, like Rowan Williams, who is he to you? And where does the Archbishop have any connection to your own faith, ministry, priesthood?
Well, the Episcopal Church is the expression of Anglicanism in the United States. And we still view ourselves as part of this Anglican communion. And so the Archbishop of Canterbury is important in that he's the one that calls people to Lambeth for the conference that happens every 10 years. So while he's not he's a head, he is an equal among equals.
And I think the other thing that it's hard to explain in a short period of time, but the Anglican Communion is made up of diverse provinces all over the world. And so in the Episcopal Church, we express Anglicanism in a certain way, where in Canada or New Zealand or Australia or the provinces in Africa, each one of those, because of regional uniqueness, have their own expression of what does it mean to be Anglican. And so there is no one unified picture of what Anglicanism. It's very much regionally expressed, as you would think even in churches, there's a regional expression within local churches.
Now later on we're going to talk about how right now it seems what's going on is very, very complicated and very sad. Some parts of it are very sad, what's gone on in the local community that we're aware of. But before we get into something like that, that's sort of political and charged, let's go back to something that I really do want to learn more about, your seminary training. Because both of you at one point decided you would pursue this call that you felt from way back in the past. So introduce us to the call to seminary. How did that all happen, Michele and Suzy?
Well, I basically was assigned to that seminary by the bishop. And so I went there, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. We went to the MB Biblical Seminary here locally, and had a great formation experience there that not only involved our professors, but also involved our home churches. So the formation process is more than just the academic part.
Who else studies at the Mennonite Brethren Seminary here? Which other churches send seminarians?
It's multi-denominational. There are a lot of Mennonites because it is a Mennonite seminary, but it's very diverse.
The Presbyterian Church currently has a program just as the Episcopal Church has, as far as allowing this local seminary to train Presbyterian pastors. So that's another program that the Mennonites have been able to use as a part of their student body.
And I think Chris Erdman teaches over there, right?
Yes.
And he's a great guest we've had on from University Presbyterian, so there would be a strong ecumenical dimension to that seminary.
Yes.
Great. They told us we have to take our break, so we've already used up half of the time. I'm so sorry, but we do have half the time left, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 1 minute to converse with Michele and Suzy about their ministries here in the Valley. Stay tuned.
KNXT TV is proud to say thank you to all its viewers who have given their support for over 25 years. And only through your support is KNXT able to provide spiritual and informative programming. Please remember KNXT in your long-term support through wills, bequests, trust, and plan giving. Your gift is important to the future of Catholic television. Help preserve the strength of KNXT's message based on the teachings of Christ. Keep KNXT in your future plans.
Hello and welcome back to the second part of a conversation with two good new friends that we have here. One of them is the priest in charge at the Church of the Holy Family Episcopal Church here in town, and the other is Suzy Ward, who is the priest in charge at St. Paul's Episcopal Church of Visalia. We're talking about their formation to priesthood, and I think we'll pick up right there with, we talked a little bit about seminary, how that was. Do you have any either anecdote or story or something that might encapsulate what it was to have done your seminary at the point in life that you did, raising children and coming to spend a long 9 years of seminary training, Suzy? Michele, how was it leaving people, coming, teaching, learning?
I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning a lot. Yeah, and it was kind of interesting because when I first started learning biblical Greek, my kids would gather around the computer with me and we'd put up the alphabet, and my 3-year-old would sit there and he'd go, he'd pick up the letters a lot faster than I did. It was quite humbling, but those little minds are like sponges. So it was kind of a family event.
A family event.
Yeah.
The commute was all the way to San Francisco. No, you're here studying, but then the work that you also did, tell us then a little bit about that. So besides studying, tell us about the assignment then to San Francisco.
Okay, well, I was made deacon here in this diocese. And because I couldn't be ordained to the priesthood here, I transferred to the Diocese of California, which is the one on the coast, and was ordained at Grace Cathedral and worked there for another 4 years. So that was a wonderful experience going up on the hill. And what I would do is I would get up real early in the morning. If I was going on just a Sunday, I would leave by 3 in the morning and have one of my kids with me, and they would sleep on the way. And then on the way back, we would have wonderful conversations. And so it was really a gift, not only working in that church and all of the resources and wonderful training that I had there, but it was a great opportunity for me to bond with my 4 teenage boys.
Boys,
Yeah.
and this is just a different way for someone to do seminary, and a different way to pay the price of the formation, all that, and then to minister so far away from where one lives. I mean, it's amazing what you were able to do so far. Then we'll talk later about what you're doing at your local parish. Suzy, what about your 9 years? Tell us a little bit about how it started and then how it gloriously concluded with your ordination.
Part of the issue was that because of my family also, when I started, I didn't want to go away to seminary, and that originally had been a roadblock. But in the meantime, I had already been ordained a deacon. I've been a deacon since 1997. So what I decided to do was, even after I'd been ordained, to continue my education because they were starting these Anglican studies classes at the seminary. They were being taught by people from Trinity Seminary in Pennsylvania. They were flying these professors out for our Anglican program. So I thought this would be an opportunity for me to continue my education. And as I found myself enjoying the studies and doing well in them, I thought, and continuing my diaconal ministries, I began to think more and more about a call to the priesthood and not just the diaconal ministry. And so I went to the bishop and asked if I could then reapply as a postulant to priesthood, and he said yes. So I was able to continue my studies, but because I was teaching full-time, also doing
Kindergarten, right?
Yes.
How nice.
Diaconal ministries, and we're having children at home, I wasn't in a hurry.
No. And to protract it sometimes is really a very beautiful way to do something. There's something of spreading out the formation over a longer time is not a bad thing to do.
No, and it was appropriate because of just the busyness of my life, because I had to commute into Fresno every night.
That's right. So you'd be from Visalia, and then later would be commissioned to Visalia. Tell us a little bit about, we keep mentioning the bishop. Is it Bishop Jerry Lamb that we're,
no,
or before him there was another bishop?
Yes, John David Schofield.
So tell us about, so he would have been the one still sending you to study, though.
Yes.
But I thought they weren't expecting female priests.
They do not. He ordained me to the diaconate, and I knew going in that he would never ordain me to the priesthood, and maybe in the back of my mind that was part of the reason I wasn't in a big hurry.
Yeah.
I knew that if I wanted to be a priest, I would have to relocate someplace else, either commute like Michele did to Grace Cathedral, or move my family to a different part of the state.
But then with the way things happened, now you have Bishop Jerry Lamb,
Yes.
who is very happy with the situation. To quote him, if I'm quoting him correctly, "I'm open to women in recognition of who they are and the gifts that they have. Michele and Suzy are extraordinary, confident, and gifted clergy who have a role to play in the church." He said nice things about you. What would you say about your bishop?
I would say he's exactly what this diocese needs. He's a caring, compassionate, very healing in his approach to working with all the different congregations in the diocese.
So it's been that you've been ordained by him.
Yes.
And you've been assigned by him.
Received into the diocese.
Because you were there.
Correct.
Talk a little bit, both of you, about the present ministries that you're involved in at your local parish. So tell us about Holy Family, and tell us about St. Paul's.
Well, Holy Family is undergoing a growth spurt. And so we're in the process of developing more programs. We've got a dynamite Sunday school program, and getting ready to start a Wednesday evening program again in the fall, and a men's Bible study, and probably changing, moving from 2 services on a Sunday to 3. So we have a lot of growth, a lot of new opportunity there.
And who's there with you? Are there others that are, do you have a deacon with you, or people on who are really in the vestry helping, or what?
Well, we don't have a deacon yet. I'd love to have one, but we don't have one at this time. We do have active lay people who take their baptismal covenant very seriously and who are very helpful and good at leading programs.
And Suzy, tell us a little bit about how it's turned out for you going back to Visalia to St. Paul's.
Well, this is a congregation that chose to remain as an Episcopal congregation, and we currently worship through the graciousness of the Jewish community in Visalia at B'nai David Synagogue. And we began our church in a school cafeteria, and then over the summer moved a year ago into B'nai David, and we've been there for a year now.
So I did see that, and it made me wonder. One of our priests, Monsignor Perry Kavuchin, is forming a community down in Bakersfield, and is at a high school, actually, is where they are able to meet while they're thinking of building the new church. How is it using a facility like a synagogue, and how has the connection been with the local Jewish community, and what good things have happened in that year, even in a facility that isn't your own?
Well, we have what we call church in a box, and they have offered us a room to store all our hymnals, all our prayer books, all our Sunday school supplies. So every Sunday we take those things out and set them up and set up the altar, and then every Sunday we take those things and we put them away. And it makes it difficult in that it's hard to do a midweek program. Yeah. But as a community, we've chosen to focus more on social concerns. We have an active support of one of the local elementary schools. Right now we're in the process of gathering materials for the backpacks for the children. Last year we stuffed 55 backpacks. We raise money for local Visalia Emergency Aid, which is a local outreach, and we also support a missionary in the Sudan, a young woman who's involved in agricultural ministry in the Sudan. And so even though we can't necessarily have an active educational program, we have an active outreach program trying to live out our baptismal covenant through outreach.
What have been the biggest challenges? It's interesting to hear that you're really on an upswing. You'd say it's like it's growing, the parish. That's really nice, and yours is too, because it definitely is beginning at a point where it can only continue to grow. What are the biggest challenges, if there were one, let's say? What would yours be, Michele? The biggest challenge you see to any parish, but also Holy Family also. What's something that's in front of you that's something to work to overcome?
Well, it's trying to fit everything into one day. Starting up new programs. We've got a whole group going to Navajo land next week, and we'll be working on an Indian reservation. Nice. And so, but to keep things going at home while I'm away, and then come back in with your tennis shoes on, running. So it's fitting everything in a day, but it's a good fit.
Good. Biggest obstacle that you're knowing is yours to deal with, Suzy?
Well, at mine, you have to understand, I was only ordained a priest 3 weeks ago.
That's right. you're just brand new.
And so I'm still learning, even though I was a deacon, it's a totally different responsibility being the priest in charge of a congregation and really wanting to help them grow in their ministries. And so it's looking at how do I take on those roles as a priest in charge, as well as continue to teach full-time, because the congregation at this point cannot financially support a full-time priest. So I'm continuing to do my lay work as well as my clerical work. So I think those balancing that out, and my family. I have a husband that likes to have a relationship with his wife and see me from time to time.
Wouldn't that be, that's always nice. I think you should make sure that happens.
Yes.
All of us have to make sure there's like a balance in what we're doing, because otherwise, and it's amazing what it is, the burdens you would be having beyond what a normal person, I mean an average person has to deal with. Ministry is a very heavy burden, and then to be priest in charge, that's another one. What would you want to say, we're sort of like in the last few minutes of our conversation, so is there anything about your vocation, about your parishes, about your ministry that you know you either haven't said enough about, or that you'd like to re-echo and just remind us of the most important thing you'd like to share now?
Well, I think that all of ministry is both a gift and a privilege, and it's a mystery. And the more we live into that, the more we realize that it is the fullness of life. And we're there at people's times of greatest need and their times of greatest happiness, and it's such a gift and something to be cherished and worked at and just lived into.
Suzy?
Well, I think the greatest privilege that I've been given is to be ordained in the Episcopal Church and to be able to serve as a priest. It was something that has been held up to me for such a long time, and it's now an opportunity that's become real to me. And I feel so blessed that my congregation has been so supportive during this whole process. And I know that we're going to continue to grow as a community, and I feel blessed just being able to be here today and participate in this.
Well, I'm very glad that we were able to have this conversation about breaking the stained glass ceiling. It is something that is definitely important that we all keep up on and know what's going on in other churches, what is the development in ecumenical affairs. This is certainly an issue that impacts Roman Catholic thinking. So we want you all to know that we're glad that we had two special guests today. Next week, believe it or not, we have another very interesting program, actually 2 weeks in a row, on the death penalty. We brought in actually a lawyer from San Francisco who's going to explain to us just the important legal ramifications of this reality that we would hope could be abolished in our lifetime, if not next week. So why don't you join us then? Till then, God bless.